Welcome to an all-new episode of the Daily Payoff. Not to be confused with the Payoff, which every single week Jeff and I cover an all-time classic match or infamous match. We cover the build, the payoff, and the aftermath. We watch the match. We're the first ones in the world to do that format, and we're very proud of that. But today, we're on the Daily Payoff. And this is your Brock Lesnar appreciation Daily Payoff. And you may have heard me say this before, but I'll say it again. He's one of the biggest stars of all time. He's also one of the most underrated stars of all time. And I feel like, and I'm guilty of this, and I know many others are as well, guilty of the fact that we don't truly understand how great Brock Lesnar is, how impactful of a star Brock Lesnar is, and where he sits all time in terms of his impact on the WWE. Brock Lesnar came onto the scene in 2002, which means he's been around for 21 years. Now, I understand he went to UFC for a few years, and he's been a part-timer for many of those years. But Brock Lesnar has been in the wrestling world now for 21 years. And, you know, the last few years I kept thinking, okay, this is probably the last year. This is probably the last year. And here we are right now getting ready for a match and potentially multi-match feud with Cody Rhodes, which is awesome. And I'm so looking forward to it. I have no idea how they're going to book it. I don't know how I would book it. I think it feels like you get multiple matches out of these guys and it lasts through SummerSlam, but what do I know? Regardless, it's going to be absolutely awesome. And, you know, it's funny because just this Monday night, what were the two things I was most looking forward to on Raw? Brock Lesnar and Trish Stratus. If I would have told you in 2003 that the best two things, the biggest two things on Raw would be Brock Lesnar and Trish both, being monster heels on the current day product, you'd think I was crazy. But here we are. So the Brock Lesnar run, again, we're talking 21 years, and by my count, he's been in at least 20, if not 25 or 30 great matches. Like, just absolute great matches. You know, you look at that three-way with Cena and Rollins. You think about all those matches with The Undertaker. Some of his singles matches with John Cena that were great. CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles, all the Roman Reigns matches. I think I mentioned Kurt Angle already. I mean, you just go through the list. A great one-on-one match with Seth Rollins. The Eddie Guerrero match. Had a great match with Triple H. You go through his catalog of matches, and again, we're talking 20 plus, just classics. And even some of the ones that maybe weren't classics, there's some good stuff with Goldberg in there. I thought their main event at WrestleMania was fantastic for what it was. So again, there's just a lot to his catalog. And I mentioned earlier, one of the most impactful, valuable performers in company history. And it's interesting because I start thinking, okay, well, where does he rank all time in the top 10? And you start throwing out some names there. And again, we're not talking best promo, best in-ring, best character. Those things are very, very subjective. But when you look at the impact and value that a wrestler has had to the company, that's where I think it gets a little bit more objective. and you can think about ratings, you can think about longevity, you can think about pay-per-view buys, you can think about some of these things that actually are measurable. Still not in exact science, but a lot better than saying, oh, well, so-and-so is the best in the ring. Well, there's a few different names you could throw out there. So in terms of impact and value, let's just throw out some names and compare them to Lesnar. Steve Austin, Austin's ahead of Lesnar. Hulk Hogan, Austin's ahead of Lesnar. The Rock, I'd argue that Brock Lesnar has had a bigger impact on the WWE than The Rock. The Rock wasn't around that long, and as great as The Rock is and as big of a star as he is now, what has he done for the WWE over the last 15 to 20 years? Couple matches, but he hasn't been headlining a bunch of pay-per-views, helping them drive subscriptions to the network, helping raise their TV deals. He's not much of an asset to them. So I would argue Brock Lesnar is a bigger asset to the company in its history over The Rock. Cena, I'd put Cena ahead of Lesnar. Edge, I'd go Lesnar. Randy Savage, the Ultimate Warrior, I think Lesnar's had a bigger impact than either of those. Andre the Giant, man, that's tough. Andre wasn't around for long, but, did have an impact, but I'd put Lesnar ahead of Andre. Undertaker, I'd put Taker ahead of Lesnar. Triple H, that's a tough one. We'll give Triple H the nod there. Shawn Michaels, I don't know. Bret Hart, I'd give the nod to Lesnar. I'd give Roman the nod over Lesnar. I'd give Lesnar the nod over Kurt Angle, over Roddy Piper, over Ric Flair, because most of what Ric Flair did was outside of WWE. I'd give Lesnar the nod over Mick Foley. So the point to this is, when you talk about impact and value to the company, I mean, we only named like 4 or 5 guys that I can come up with off the top of my head that I would put above Lesnar. So without question, he's a top 10 all-timer in terms of what he has meant to the company, in terms of longevity, in terms of eyeballs, in terms of shows he's main evented. The other crazy thing about Lesnar, give me a 30-day stretch in his career where he wasn't a top star main eventer. You can't. He's been on top since day one. He won the King of the Ring and won the title within like his first 4 or 5 months in the company. He beats The Rock to main event SummerSlam 2002. And he's been on top ever since. So what an unbelievable career and impact. And again, I don't think we appreciate it enough. In terms of his in-ring work, in terms of his promo, in terms of the storylines he's been involved with, all top-notch, all great stuff. I mean, there's rarely much of what you look at that Lesnar's ever done that wasn't really strong to, being absolutely incredible. So this is, again, just your Brock Lesnar appreciation podcast for what he has done and continues to do, and I will say has been completely underrated in the grand scheme of things. One of the best of all time. So that's all I got for you today on the Daily Payoff. If you haven't already, make sure to hit subscribe. Appreciate you listening. Appreciate your support. We'll see you again tomorrow.